Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and I teach watercolor and sometimes gouache, and today we are doing our Let's Make Art Matter for our Sacred Shadows box. Now, our Let's Make Art Matter is a pre-addressed, pre-stamped postcard that we include in all of our watercolor boxes, just as a way to send someone an art hug, you know?
Which is nice.
Which is nice. We have Keenan here working the cameras.
Keenan's here.
And this month, our recipient is Bransen. And recently, he's gone through an ugly breakup. He's been heartbroken. He's kind of struggling with depression. His family is very supportive and seeking him professional help. But I thought it would be really wonderful, and his aunt nominated him to get some postcards so we can send our love and just let him know that we're thinking about him and he's not alone. I actually thought that this went in line with the quote that we're going to put, the quote that's on our welcome note for this box, and also the project that we're going to paint today for this postcard. So I'm going to read the quote.
Okay.
And just like the moon, you shall go through phases of light, of dark, and of everything in between. And though you may not always appear with the same brightness, you are always, always whole. So what we're going to paint today is this moon, and this is a reference photo that I found on Unsplash by Rita, R-I-T-A, if you guys wanted to take a look. And I like to use these tutorials as an opportunity for you guys to see how I work through a project and my thinking of the creative process of how I break down a painting and approach it. So I've never painted this before. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're going to do it together. And hopefully by sending this postcard to Bransen, he'll feel some love and support as he's working on getting better. And we're cheering for him.
Yeah, we got you, Bransen.
All right. So I have all my brushes handy. I don't know which ones I'm going to use yet. I also have a pencil to do a sketch. I'm using all 5 colors from the box, which is our gouache box. Do I need to go through the colors, you think? Maybe just say them really quick.
Yeah, names.
Okay. We're using Pebeo Studio Gouache, and I really don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm sorry. We are doing permanent white, primary yellow, primary magenta, primary cyan, and ivory black. I don't know which colors I'm going to use. I might use all of them. I might not. I don't know.
That's fun.
We'll just see. And again, I have all my stuff. I got my postcard. I taped it down using my Holbein soft tape. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my reference photo, and I'm going to kind of break it down and think about how similar I want my painting to be from the reference photo, or if I'm going to make changes, what are those changes? And I'm sorry if you can't see this photo very well. This is like as bright as my cell phone goes, so this is what we're doing.
That's unacceptable.
Too bad. So what I really love, so first what I like to do when looking at a reference photo is I like to pick out what it is that I love about it and that I want to keep. I really love the color transition of the sky. I really love how dark these clouds are, but they're kind of like a purpley black, which I think is beautiful. And I love that the moon is the sliver of the moon because, again, it's kind of illustrating you're always whole even if we can't see it. Yes, Keenan?
I thought the sliver of the moon was like something from your pocket rather than the actual moon.
You thought it was lint?
Yeah, initially I couldn't see it. And I was like, wait a second.
Okay, so that brings up a great point. For me, when looking at this reference photo, I want to keep those 3 things: the color transition, the dark clouds, and the moon. But for me, I feel like I want the moon to have a larger presence. So one, it's more obvious that it's a moon, and it can I feel like I want the moon to be the subject, so it needs to be a little bit bigger. So I am going to adjust the size of this moon when I do this in my painting postcard. The other thing that I'm going to look at is there's a lot of stuff. You can see treetops right here, maybe some clouds. I have to think about the size of this and the size of my paper. So my phone is long and skinny, right? So I won't be able to get everything in here, like the same ratio. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna take some stuff out. So I'm not gonna do the tree line. I'm not gonna do these dark clouds over here. I'm gonna kind of more zoom in and kind of let things crop. So I might crop this kind of right-hand side here. Okay, and the other thing that I'm gonna do besides making my moon larger is I'm actually gonna flip it. Because for me, I'm looking at this as a whole, excuse me, as a whole composition, and I'm thinking there's a lot of activity going on the right-hand side, and also the moon is curved on the right-hand side. And so I feel like the left-hand side is kind of empty a little bit. And so for me, I feel like that if I flip that moon around and make it bigger, it would be pointing to the right. So my clouds would have a lot of activity and my moon would be pointing to that activity, where this way I feel like the moon is pointing to the side of my paper, and it kind of makes the viewer's eye go off the edge. Do you guys see that a little bit?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so, and I also want to acknowledge that what I'm saying and what I'm choosing to do is not the only way, and it's definitely not the right way. Maybe I shouldn't have said definitely not the right way.
That was an aggressive, I'm doing this right.
That was aggressive. I guess what I mean to say is there's not only one way that you can do this, and just because I'm doing it this way doesn't mean it's right. It's just what I feel as an artist that I would like to accomplish. But you as an artist approaching this project can make your very own decisions, and they are not wrong. So follow that inner instinct that's within you that's saying, what if I do this? Or what if I try this? That's how we learn and that's how we grow. And I feel like sometimes the biggest thing when it comes to art is not necessarily learning the craft, but trusting yourself and listening to the voice inside you. So I hope that you can take an opportunity to do that. Okay, so now I have a visual understanding of how I'm going to approach this in my painting. And now I'm going to break it down mentally into steps of how I want to approach it. So with gouache, we can layer. With watercolor, we can't. So that's why gouache is going to be super helpful in this project. So I'm not even going to worry about painting in my moon until the very last step. So let's take out the moon. Then I'm going to definitely want to paint my color transition first, and then I'll paint my clouds, and then I'll go in and put in my moon. Okay?
Okay.
So let's do it. I'm going to do an oath this time. I don't always do oaths with postcards, but it feels right for this project.
Yes, it does.
So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start with our color transition. And if I'm looking at my colors here on my sky, it kind of, and I'll zoom in, it's kind of like a light blue. And then it goes to almost like a muddy, kind of like green a little bit, where that blue and that orange kind of meet. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's just a little bit, and then it goes to this really beautiful like peachy color. So we're gonna try that, okay? So I'm gonna grab my 12, I'm gonna grab some cyan, I'm gonna grab some white, I'm gonna grab a little bit of red.
Ooh.
And I feel like it needs to be more blue, so I'm gonna do more cyan. And I feel like it needs a little bit of black, not a lot. Let's just see what desaturating these colors a little bit brings. There we go. That feels good. Just needed to desaturate just a bit. Okay, so that feels good. And now I'm gonna wanna mix my kind of like orangey section. So I'm gonna grab yellow, red, and let's do a tiny bit of blue to bring that down. But be careful, it can easily turn it green. If you grab too much blue and it turned it green, you can grab some more red to balance that green out. And I'm gonna grab just a little bit of black. Same thing, I kind of just want to desaturate it just a little bit. Okay, that feels good. And then I want to think about what's going to happen when these colors meet. And if you're afraid of testing that on your paper, you can actually even test that on your palette and just be like, okay, what's actually going to happen when these mix together? Okay, so I get this really, oh, I mixed it off the side. There we go. I get this really desaturated green, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. I wonder if I can almost make it a purpley color. So if I do some blue, some red, some yellow, some more red because that turned it too green. Let's do some more blue. And then let's do some kind of more orangey here. Okay, so this color transition might be what I'm going for a little bit, but it's just gonna be tiny hints. And the reason for this is I feel like if I do this kind of desaturated green in the middle, it just would look weird. So instead I'm gonna try and figure out a way that I can do color transitions that go in line with kind of more the color wheel. So like orange to red to purple to like a gray, like purpley blue, and then blue. And I'm gonna see how that works.
Sweet.
Okay. And actually the more that I look at this reference photo, I'm wondering if, you know, in my brain, I was just like, well, when orange and blue meet, that makes green. But kind of right here along this line, I'm starting to see a little bit of purple too. Am I crazy? Do you see that?
A little bit.
So I guess all of that is to say that as the more you look at something, it can change where you're just like, oh, I'm starting to actually notice this color or that kind of thing. So we're just gonna start, okay?
Go for it.
Go for it. So I have my 12. I'm going to grab this blue, and I added some water to it to make it kind of easy to move around in because it dried a little bit as I was mixing the other colors. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of this kind of purpley color, let it overlap with my blue. And now I'm going to bring in some of my kind of red orange. And then you can say, actually, I want there to be maybe a hint of pink. So maybe I'll do like a little bit of pink here.
Ooh, that's nice.
And then maybe a little bit stronger yellow at the bottom. And this is what is tricky, and I'm just gonna be very open about like my personal struggles as an artist is like, you know, when the sun has just set and the sky is still illuminated, but it's dark?
Oh,
Like
yes.
this picture?
Yes.
I've been really trying to figure out how to communicate that in a painting because right now, this kind of looks like a sunrise.
Totally.
Right? It's vibrant. And so I'm like, okay, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do another layer with a little bit thicker paint and go a little bit grayer to see if I can really capture that feeling of, you know, you can tell that it's just about to turn night. So the sky is still light, but it's not like the sun is out, okay? So I'm gonna mix some more color and I'm gonna grab more paint so it's a little bit thicker. So I got my blue, I'm gonna grab some red or magenta. I keep saying red, but it's actually magenta. I'm gonna grab a little bit of black and some white. All right, let's try that. So I gotta rinse all the paint off my brush. That's the tricky thing about mixing colors is like sometimes they get stuck in your brush and you gotta clean them out before you can go
and
for
then
it.
when you have 2 jars for cool colors,
Yep.
it's really hard.
And then I'm gonna grab this kind of desaturated blue that has white on it. And I'm just kind of trying to get a smooth wash, so I'm really working it back and forth a lot. I'm gonna add more white here. Maybe even a little bit more white again. rinse my brush, and we're gonna move on to kind of more that like peachy gold color. So that one's definitely stronger in color. I have more paint on my brush, so it's just picking up more paint. And then I'm gonna do this like purple, gray purple. Okay, I feel like that's getting a little bit closer.
Yeah, that's cool looking.
And maybe I can use a dry brush to kind of just try and smooth some of these lines out. And I'm just gonna do one more layer of blue, and I'm gonna go a little bit stronger with my black. Now remember, I am gonna do really dark clouds on top of this. So I don't wanna go so dark that I lose the ability to have a really dark value on top.
Cool.
And let's bring in more of that purple a little bit, purple gray. Okay, now I feel like we're starting to get somewhere.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
And I just feel like it needs, I don't know why, maybe you guys aren't seeing it, but I feel like there's more pink in this.
In the reference photo?
Yeah. And maybe that's my mind saying like, put in pink, you like pink, I don't know.
Pink is good.
Pink is good. Okay, and I feel like this transition needs to be a bit smoother. And maybe a little bit of white. Again, this is, you might be like, is she just guessing? Yes. Yes, I am.
Yes. This is the process.
This is the process. You just try things and you guess and you're like, oh, that worked. And then you're like, actually, that didn't, or yes, it did, or.
Ooh, that looks pretty.
And I want to do, just to kind of exaggerate that last minute of light as the sun just after it went down and it's kind of warm right on the horizon, we can just do an extra little swatch of brighter color. And then I'm going to take my dry brush, and you can see I'm starting to get a little bit of a texture on my paper just from kind of working it so much. And I'm not going to let that stop me. It's fine. All right. All right.
That looks awesome.
I feel more convinced that that is a night, like the sun went down, but it's still illuminated. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let it dry. And actually, maybe instead of drying it, I'll mix my cloud color. And then if I need to use my heat it tool, I can. So the clouds are actually this really gorgeous, like dark violet, and they're silhouetted against, that's why they're dark. They're like dark in front of the light sky. So they're gonna be a really dark value, where like when the sun is up, clouds are, you know, white or
gray.
Yeah, different values of white. But these ones are silhouetted, so they're dark. So I'm gonna grab cyan, magenta, black. And you can see I'm just mixing right on top of the blue that I already had, because why not?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you guys can always like test colors and be like, okay, and there could be some areas, like if you look where it's a lighter value in terms of like how dense it is. Can you guys see that? Not really. It's like a lighter purple. So where the clouds like kind of are in the middle, it's really dark, but then along the edges, it turns to a lighter purple. So I want to take that into account when I'm mixing colors. Or I'm like, okay, I kind of want like a lighter purple option, and then a medium purple option, and then like a black option, okay?
Okay.
And then looking at the shape of it, this is where you can take some creative license and be like, okay, well, I know my moon is going to be bigger. So if my moon is going to be bigger, then I need to adjust the ratio of the moon size to cloud size. So then it's just like, actually, that could stay pretty much the same. If I just make it bigger right there, those relations in size actually feel fine. And now I'm going to look at placement. So I have one coming up here, and I'm not painting yet. I can just go through the motions, you know, of like, okay, I'm going to put some here. There's going to be some here. I'm going to look at the edges. What are those organic shapes, you know? And you kind of just follow with your eye the outline, and then you kind of like pretend to paint it just so you can get an idea of where things are going to go. Okay? And I'm going to dry this a little bit.
One of those clouds looks like a stingray.
Oh, I can totally see that.
Mm-hmm.
And the wonderful thing about clouds is, especially if you're going off of a photo, like I use clouds as essentially a guide of being like, okay, this is the feeling of the clouds. They're like really soft and swifty.
Swifty.
Do you know what I'm trying?
There's an E at the end.
What am I trying to say?
Soft and
Wispy.
wispy.
They're soft and wispy. Some of them are like really big and like, you know, a storm's about to come. But after I get an understanding of the overall shape of my clouds, of like the heaviness essentially, then I give myself a little bit of freedom when painting.
Clouds are crazy.
Yeah.
They're heavy, but they float.
Now, before you paint your clouds, I need you to know that you cannot go back in and adjust your sky after you put in your clouds. So I want you to be happy with how your clouds feel before you paint this part. And I actually might add a little bit of purple up here. Just like, I don't know, a hint.
I like that.
Yeah, that feels a little bit better, doesn't it? And it could be even at this point in your painting, you're just like, okay, I might not be looking so much at the reference photo anymore. I'm more kind of thinking, how can I make this painting, the one I have in front of me, the best painting it can be? At any time, you can abandon your reference photo and just focus on what's happening in front of you. And that can happen at any stage. So it could happen like right at the beginning, and then you're like, okay, I don't need this anymore. I'm just gonna do what's right for this painting. Or you can follow it all the way up until the end. And there's different, there's different times. There's not like a right time. Does that make sense? You got to feel it. It's not helpful, but.
Well, I liked it.
Thanks. And I don't know, maybe just a little bit more purple in here, like pinky purple though. This one was more blue purple. Just feel like it need a little pinky purple. But that pinky purple was mostly water, and you can tell by how I lifted the color up instead of put it down. So now I gotta be a little bit more thick with my paint. Ooh, that's feeling better. I like that. Yes, there we go. Ooh, I like that color transition.
Yeah, that looks
better.
Sweet. I love the very top though.
Yeah. And then as you like paint your sky, if there's a spot that you're just like, oh, I actually really love that, I want that to be seen, then you can adjust the clouds or the placement on top of things to hide areas that you don't like or to show areas that you do like. So use that information as you will.
Wisely.
Wisely. Use that power wisely. Okay, so I want to acknowledge that this is the beautiful and sometimes frustrating thing with gouache. We can layer it, but the bottom will reactivate if we have too much water. So when you paint your clouds right now, make sure you have more paint than water on your brush so you don't accidentally lift your background, okay? So I'm gonna have this like pretty purple. I'm gonna make sure it has more paint than water, so I'm picking up a good amount of paint, which might not feel natural to us as watercolorists, but I'm be mindful about that. And then I'm just gonna start kind of painting where, excuse me, I kind of want my clouds to go. And I'm not doing all the details, I'm kind of just placing them. So I'm not focusing too much along the edges, I'm not focusing too much about different values, I'm kind of just giving the structure of how things are gonna be. Okay, and then I really like how it kind of like has these little ones here. Kind of going this way. Okay, and now I'm like, okay, how does that feel in my composition? I feel pretty happy with that. Now you can go in and say, let's do some soft edges. And I'm gonna make a more vibrant purple for this part. And you can use, I'm gonna use actually a smaller brush. Grab that lighter purple and let yourself do these kind of soft textures. Like think about how wispy clouds are along the edges.
Is this more of a dry brush?
I would say this is more of a dry brush because I don't want a lot of water on my brush because that will accidentally lift my background. So I'm doing kind of more of a light pressure, dry brush technique to get this kind of really pretty light purple edges on my clouds. And then I want you to think about the texture, like the shape that you're forming, and our brain loves to make patterns. So are you making the same shape along all the edges of your clouds? And if you are, mess that up on purpose, where you're like, okay, actually this kind of goes out here. You know, just kind of like keep messing with it till you're just like, oh, that feels like a natural wispy accidental cloud. Maybe there's a hint of one starting over here. So just to kind of activate that space but not totally cover it up. And now my brush got a little bit too dry, so I'm gonna put some water on it, but not so much that it is gonna take over or lift up my background. And I'm gonna go even more aggressive with my color of purple here. Like I want it to be very purple, so I'm gonna add more magenta in there. And if you want, you can add a little bit of white, but remember, white and black, when you mix in, I don't know, I feel like it kind of just desaturates the color a little, which isn't a bad thing, but just be aware. And especially down here, I don't know, I feel like gets really kind of more of that pink purple. And think about where you want your moon to go. Where is this moon gonna go? Are you leaving space for it? I'm gonna put mine right there. Okay, this area needs to be softened up. Using just a dry brush technique, getting that light value on there, kind of. Well, that feels pretty darn good.
That looks awesome. Initially, I was like, oh no. The process is coming back at us today.
I mean, and what's funny is we have that I have that in my head too. So as I'm painting, and especially when I was doing the wash of the sky, I'm like, I'm not going to pull this one out. I'm not going to find a way to do this. And everyone's going to see that I'm a fraud. But you have to tell your brain to be quiet. And and that's what I mean of like, art is not necessarily about learning the craft. It's also about telling yourself that it's okay and to keep going even when you're afraid, or even when you're like, this looks terrible. Or even when you're just like, how is this even going to result in anything? You just keep going. And so, that very thought that Keenan's having watching, I have in my own brain, and you might have in your own brain as you paint, and you just gotta say, it's okay. Give your painting a chance to be something. Give yourself a chance to be something before you just stop.
If the phrase definitely is not right gets stuck in your head, just send it away. It's too aggressive.
Too aggressive. Tell your brain to stop talking. Okay, I feel really happy with my clouds. I'm not gonna do more on them. I'm gonna now go to my moon. And just so you guys know, how do I say this? I'm gonna put in my moon, and then you have to say, how do these things work with each other? Do I need to go back and adjust my clouds? My sky is gone. We're not touching my sky again, but maybe the clouds. So,
no, I like the clouds.
I know, but what I'm saying is your painting is gonna change with each new element that you add.
Oh, okay.
So make sure that you go back and analyze, maybe not analyze, but just be like, how are these things working together?
I think that's analyzing.
I know, I just don't like that word.
Analyze is just too aggressive.
It is. Okay, so I'm going to do a white moon with warmth to it. So I added some yellow, and you can even sometimes I'll just be like, how is this gonna look on there? Ooh, that's too lemony. I don't like that. So maybe I'll add a little bit of magenta. And you can decide, do you want your moon to be white? Do you want it to be kind of like that harvest moon feel where it's a little bit orange? In this reference photo, I know it looks white, but it's actually yellow. Look at that. That's straight yellow.
Oh, that's very yellow. Very similar to the harvest moon, though.
Yeah. So then I'm just like, okay, it is very yellow, but I think I want mine to be more gold yellow than bright yellow.
Banana yellow.
How does that look?
Oh, that's nice.
That does look kind of nice. And the nice thing about gouache is you can lay down this color, and then you can say, actually, I don't really like how that looks, and paint over it. And you can go white or whatever color you want. Okay, so I'm gonna put in my moon using this kind of warm, really light value. And when you look at your reference photo, it's always a good practice to look at where are my highest highlights or strongest highlights and my strongest shadows. It's really good to have those kind of mentally in your place. So if I were to look at just this picture, my clouds are my darkest value and my moon is my highest highlight, and they're pretty opposite on the value spectrum. So I need to take that information into my painting and think, okay, I need to make sure that whatever I do with my moon, it needs to be the highlight. It needs to be the lightest value. And I'm just gonna go for it. And I'm just gonna do kind of a curved line, and then you kind of shape it from there. It gets a little bit thicker. Here. Well, I like it.
Yeah.
I think that's good. And if you want to really, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go in with just white and just maybe on some of it put in a little bit of just like really strong. Or maybe you can do the opposite and go in and grab like, now I'm kind of just playing. But maybe mix like a nice gold color and maybe along the edges.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, just add that little bit of warmth and maybe blend that white out a little bit so it's not so stark. And are there stars in this? There's not, but I kind of want to put them in. What do you think, Keenan?
I would add stars. Especially when I accept the fact that it's my painting and I can do whatever I want to it.
That's right. Okay, so I'm gonna start with just a couple here and there just to see. Boop. Boop. And you want to do them behind the clouds.
Are stars a situation where if you want to try the splatter technique, you do them before the clouds?
Yes. But because this painting is so cropped in, I'm not going like crazy splatter with my stars. So this one, you can actually just like put them in with little dots. But the how you make stars look a little bit more realistic is you need to have them different sizes and different values, because that's actually like there's distance with the different stars, right? Some are closer to us, some are farther away, and how that's communicated is some are bigger and some are smaller, and also the values. Some are brighter and some are not as bright, excuse me. So if you want your stars to, your sky to feel like it has depth, even your stars need to have slight value changes and size changes. Not crazy, but just a little bit. And if you guys are familiar with the night sky and constellations and things like that, other galaxies, like you could be like, well, I'm gonna put this in, or I know that at this time of night in this season, there's actually a grouping of stars over here called, I don't know, I'm obviously not.
Andromeda.
Sure.
Cassiopeia.
Sure, yep. But just like my husband, Michael, is into astronomy, so he can look up and be like, oh, that's so-and-so. And so like, if you are wonderful with that knowledge, you can maybe put that in some of your painting. And I'm doing it more just in the blue, not in the yellow. It's kind of just up here.
That's awesome. Those clouds don't look like they're actually on the painting.
That looks pretty good.
They look disconnected.
In a bad way?
No, in a cool way.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait a second.
Like, sorry,
what do you
sorry,
mean?
Sorry, wrong timing.
And then just any last minute changes, I'm actually just gonna add a little bit of texture up here. I didn't like how strong and horizontal the top of this cloud ended up being, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of a bump. There we go. That feels better. Should we do our tape?
Oh, yes.
All right, I'm gonna put this away. And what's really helpful, I have found for me as I'm kind of creating my own artwork, is I will put my reference photo away at the end and not just look at the reference photo and the painting and go back and forth. I want to look at my painting that I painted as its own individual thing and see what does it need, not how much does it match this, which is not a bad thing, and that's usually what you do a lot when you're learning. But as you're starting to go into your own artwork, your own style, your own compositions, whatever references you're using, put them away at the end and say, what is this painting doing? What does this one thing need? Because it's kind of, when you're comparing, all you're doing is looking at these two things connected instead of the one independently. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Wow.
Well, I'm pretty darn proud of myself.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That looks really cool.
That looks awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I love how that turned out. I absolutely love it. Cool. Okay, well, that's our project for today. I hope you guys learned something. I know that it's probably a little bit tricky trying to follow along with someone who is just making it up as they go and trying to figure it out, but I really appreciate you guys doing that. And hopefully by me just talking out loud as I problem solve, as I figure out what I need to do and how I approach things, you can take that into your own practice, and pretty soon you won't need me anymore. That's okay. That's pretty exciting, I think.
Then you can come to my classes.
Then I'm going to go to your classes and you're going to teach me stuff, and it's going to be awesome. So, I hope that you take the time to make this for Bransen, for somebody, for anybody, even yourself. Art has the power of bringing comfort and healing, and it's not about saying the right thing. It's not about being perfect. It's not about always knowing the right thing to do, because the reality is we're all just making it up as we go, and we're all just trying our best pretty much. And so this is more about taking the time out so someone else knows that you're just thinking of them. That's it. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And so if it's not this painting, maybe it's another painting. If it's not a painting, maybe it's a little note of encouragement, but put it in the mail and spread that love, spread art, spread kindness, you know?
Yep.
If you are not part of our subscription where this postcard was included, you can still absolutely participate. You can email our customer happiness team at hello@letsmakeart.com, and they can help you get started with how you can send this postcard to Bransen. If there is anyone that you think would benefit from this program, there's a nomination form on our website. And if you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. Keenan? Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Good job, Sarah.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.